Welcome to TechGolly podcast.
So today we're heading into a corner of the corporate world that most people try to avoid.
At all costs.
Yeah, at all costs. Yeah. You know, it's usually tucked away in a quiet corner of the office behind a heavy door. We're talking about the legal department.
Ah, yes. The place where fun goes to die. Or at least that's the reputation.
Exactly, the Department of No.
Yeah.
The black hole where contracts just vanish.
Yeah.
But the research we've got today uses a metaphor I found really evocative.
Oh, yeah.
It describes the traditional legal department as the percussion section of the corporate orchestra.
I love that. It's actually perfect.
Isn't it?
I mean, think about it. The percussion section, they sit way in the back. You kind of forget they're even there.
Right.
While the violins and the woodwinds, your sales and product teams, are playing the melody. You only notice the percussion when, bam, they hit a massive gong to stop everything.
Because there's a crisis.
Yeah.
They're loud, they're reactive, and it usually means something intense is happening.
But that's exactly what we're challenging today. This material we're diving into argues that digital transformation is just smashing that stereotype.
So moving from that back row percussion section to
What?
the conductor.
Or at least first chair. It's a shift from what the source calls a fortress of paper to a data-driven engine.
And to keep this grounded, we're going to anchor this whole discussion around a specific case study. It tracks a company called Innovate Corp.
And just to be clear, Innovate Corp is a fictional company in the source material, but it's an amalgam, you know? It represents the very real journey a lot of these departments are on.
Okay, so our story's protagonist is a new general counsel, Eleanor Vance. But before we get to her, we have to understand just how broken things were.
The source calls it the anatomy of an analog disaster.
That's a strong title.
It is, but it's pretty accurate for a lot of companies.
So paint the scene for us. What does this disaster actually look like at Innovate Corp?
It looks like, well, it's chaos. The most visible symptom was the paper fortress.
The paper fortress.
Yeah. Total document management chaos. So imagine your most critical contracts deals worth millions are stored in locked physical filing cabinets.
Wow.
Or even worse, on some random lawyer's hard drive.
So if that lawyer is out sick, the contract essentially doesn't exist.
Precisely. And that leads to this version control nightmare, which I think we can all relate to.
Oh, I have absolutely been there, frantically searching for final version v3 use this own.doc.
Exactly. And in a legal context, using the wrong version isn't just annoying, it's a massive liability. You could be agreeing to terms you thought were deleted.
That's terrifying. So the storage is a mess.
Huh.
But the source says the communication was even worse. The email black hole.
This is the classic bottleneck. At Innovate Corp, there was no central intake system. If you were in sales and needed a contract looked at, you just emailed a lawyer.
Which sounds normal, right? I mean, that's how a lot of us work.
It sounds normal, but it's strategically fatal because an email inbox just operates on first in, first out logic.
Ah, I see where you're going. So a request to approve a flyer for the company picnic could get reviewed before a multi-million-dollar merger agreement just because it arrived 5 minutes earlier.
Exactly. There was no triage, no priority. And because the business units, sales, finance, had no visibility into that black hole, they got anxious.
So they start following up, just checking in.
Right. They call, they email again, which just distracts the lawyer, breaks their flow, and makes them even slower. It's a productivity death spiral.
And on top of that, there's a manual treadmill.
This is just a tragic waste of talent. You have these highly paid lawyers acting like administrative clerks, manually reviewing standard clauses in every single contract.
Just a lack of tools.
A lack of tools and trust. And then they were chasing wet signatures.
Wet meaning actual ink on paper.
In a tech company.
Yes. Printing PDFs, mailing them, getting a physical signature, scanning them back in. It added days, sometimes weeks to deals.
I can't imagine the CFO was happy about any of this. Not at all. They were seen purely as a cost center. They spent money, they slowed things down, and because they had no data, they couldn't prove their value.
Okay, so the situation is dire. Enter Eleanor Vance, the new general counsel. But her mandate was different, wasn't it?
Completely different. The board didn't just want a lawyer, they hired a change agent. The instruction was explicit. Stop being a bottleneck. Start being a business accelerator.
I love that phrase, business accelerator. But how does a lawyer actually do that? Usually, accelerating implies cutting corners, which is the opposite of what they're trained to do.
And that's the core tension. Eleanor brought in 3 guiding principles. First, run legal, like a business.
Meaning?
Meaning you focus on your customer, which in this case is the internal employee. You focus on efficiency and service delivery, just like a product team.
Okay, what's number 2?
Data.
Not trauma.
I like that one.
It's powerful. It means decisions get based on metrics,
Yeah.
not on who's yelling the loudest.
And the third, enable, don't inhibit. So the default answer shifts from no to here is how we can do this safely. You go from being a gatekeeper to a guide.
So she has the philosophy, she has the mandate, but she walks into this paper fortress. Does she just go buy a bunch of software?
That's the trap, right? Thinking tech is the solution. She did the opposite. Phase 1 was the diagnostic.
She audited the crime scene.
Exactly. She mapped every workflow. She asked the business what frustrates you, and she asked her lawyers what's eating your time. And they found the low-hanging fruit.
Which was?
NDAs, non-disclosure agreements.
The bread and butter of corporate legal?
And the biggest clog in the system. Simple, low-risk documents that were taking up huge amounts of lawyer time.
Okay, so she identifies the problem. Now comes the tech stack. What did she actually put in place?
She brought in 3 cornerstone systems. First up, a CLM. That's a contract lifecycle management system.
Okay, so how is a CLM different from just, a shared drive?
A shared drive is passive. It just holds a file. A CLM is active. It's the single source of truth. It houses templates, automates workflows, and it tracks the data inside the contract. It's a database, not a storage bin.
Got it. What's cornerstone number 2?
E-billing. This is for dealing with outside law firms.
The really expensive one.
The really expensive ones. Before this, they just get a PDF invoice for $50,000 and, pay it.
With no detail.
Very little. E-billing forces firms to submit detailed line item data. It allows the company to see exactly what they're paying for and automatically flag over charges.
Smart. Then the third one?
A DMS, or document management system. This is the secure hub for everything else. Memos, research, all the work product. It's the department's brain.
So she's organized the files, she's tracking the contracts, she's watching the money. That just sounds like good hygiene. How does this make them a business accelerator?
That happens in phases 3 and 4. This is where they change the process. Eleanor decided to kill the email black hole by creating a front door.
Like a ticketing system for legal.
Essentially, yes. A centralized online portal. You want a contract, you fill out a form.
I have to say, employees usually hate those things. They feel so impersonal.
The resistance was real at first, but the payoff was transparency. No more black hole. You could log in and see the status of your request. It stopped all those just checking in emails.
Okay, I could see that. But the case study mentions self-service. That sounds risky.
It is, without guardrails. But remember those NDAs that were clogging everything up?
Yeah.
They built a self-service NDA portal. A salesperson logs in, types in the client's details, and the system generates a compliant NDA and sends it for e-signature.
Without a lawyer even looking at it.
Without a lawyer ever touching it.
That must have terrified the legal team.
It required a huge mindset shift. They had to accept that the risk of a bad NDA was lower than the cost of slowing down the entire sales org. It's a business calculation.
And that leads to phase 4, harnessing data, moving from reactive to predictive.
Exactly.
What can legal data actually predict?
Risk and speed. They built a dashboard tracking KPIs like contract cycle time. How long does it take to actually close a deal?
So she could walk into a board meeting and show a chart proving they're getting faster.
Yes, but they went deeper. They used the data to analyze their own negotiation history to see which clauses always cause the most arguments.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say the data showed that clause 14 sum liability clause always caused a 2-week delay while the lawyers argued over it.
Okay.
But the data also showed that the company never actually had to use that clause in a lawsuit.
So they're fighting a war over territory that has no real value.
Exactly. The data proved the fight wasn't worth the delay, so Eleanor's team just changed the standard template, softened the language.
And deals start closing 2 weeks faster.
That's strategic value. That's revenue acceleration.
That's fascinating. But we have to talk about the people. Phase 5 is the human element.
The culture war.
I assume not everyone was thrilled. You have lawyers trained to be these bespoke craftsmen. Now you're asking them to use a ticketing system.
Well, the fear was that the tools were turning them into robots or that the work was beneath them. There was a lot of ego. The study has this great quote.
Let me guess. I didn't go to law school to do X.
You got it. I didn't go to law school to manage a dashboard.
That says it all. It's an identity crisis.
It is. They saw themselves as artists, and Eleanor was asking them to be engineers.
So how did she win them over?
She showcased the early wins. When the lawyers realized the NDA portal meant they didn't have to review 50 identical documents on a weekend.
They got their weekends back. That's a powerful motivator.
A very powerful motivator. And she also started marketing the department internally, rebranding them from the Department of No to partners who helped close deals faster.
So the big question, did it actually work? What were the results?
The numbers are pretty staggering. Let's start with speed. Contract cycle time for sales agreements dropped by 60%.
60?
60. From 15 days down to 6.
That is massive. That's cash in the bank weeks earlier.
Exactly. And the NDAs. Turnaround time went from 3 to 4 days to under 15 minutes.
Wow.
Capacity also went up. The team could handle 30% more volume without any new hires.
And financially?
They saved 15% on outside counsel spend in the first year alone.
So the ROI was clear, but what about that seat at the table?
That was the qualitative win. Because they had data, they were invited to strategy meetings early. They weren't the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff anymore. They were helping plan the route at the top.
The percussion section becomes the conductor.
That's the transformation.
Now the case study looks to the future, and of course it talks about AI.
Of course. The next frontier is artificial intelligence.
But how does it apply here specifically?
It's about reading and reasoning. You have machine learning that can read a contract a vendor sends you and instantly flag the risks against your own playbook.
So it does the first pass review automatically.
Right. And then you have generative AI, like a GPT-4 acting as a co-pilot.
Doing what exactly?
Summarizing new regulations, drafting complex clauses for the lawyer to then review and edit. It shifts the lawyer from being the writer to being the editor.
It sounds incredible, but also risky. We hear about AI hallucinations. We can't have that in a legal contract.
And that's the huge barrier. That and security. You can't just paste confidential client data into a public AI model.
Right.
So the challenge now is building secure private AIs for this. But the potential is undeniable.
So let's bring this all back. We've gone from the email black hole to this dashboard-driven AI-ready unit. If I'm listening and I work in HR or finance, why should I care about what the lawyers did?
Because the so what here applies to every single corporate function. It's about the shift from being defensive to proactive.
Break that down for me.
Every department has its grunt work, its black hole inboxes. This case study shows that when you use data and automation, you don't just save time. You elevate the nature of your work. You stop being defined by your process and start being defined by your strategy.
It's about proving your value with math, not just with effort.
Precisely. It turns a support function into a strategic asset.
Here's a thought to leave you with then. We tend to think of legal as the most stubborn, traditional, don't change anything part of a company. They're the ultimate holdouts. If they can reinvent themselves, if the Department of No can become the Department of How, what's the excuse for the rest of us?
That is the question.
And as AI starts to take over all that drudgery, the reviewing, the checking, are we ready for a world where our value comes purely from our judgment and not our ability to just endure that manual treadmill? Something to think about.
Indeed.